Welcome, everybody, to the May 11th. I can no longer remember how many weeks we've been at it here, so I don't know whether we're in week 7 or week 8 of our Monday COVID-19 check-in calls with Head Start and ECAP and Early Head Start members and friends and parents and directors and staff and everyone. Oh, week 9. Oh, gosh. I mean, I honestly thought it was week 8, but see, that's why I can only go by date now. Again, my name is Katie Warren with the Head Start ECAP Association, and we do this call every week to just give updates about what we are hearing and get updates from you about what you are experiencing and what you might need and what we should do. We usually have somebody from DCYF who's able to participate. Nicole, Laura, are you on here? No, I don't see her. So it could be that we don't, in which case we will, we regularly either report back to DCYF for anything that we need support on, or to Region 10, or we have somebody on the call who does that. So we are not operating in a vacuum. All right, so let's get started. I only have a few updates today. One is everybody who's on this call should have received my WSA Monday email that I put a lot of effort into every week because people send me stuff all week long. And we experience conversations with staff and directors over the course of the week. And then we consolidate all of that for you every week. If you didn't get that in your email, it is not because you are not on my list. It's because it is in your spam, because everybody who registered for this call got this. So if you can go into your spam and make me a trusted sender, you will get that amazing email every Monday until we decide that we don't need to do that anymore. So I hope people will do that. The first thing I want to mention that is in that email is that last week's conversation had a lot of conversation about licensing and getting started again and talking to your licensor and what new rules we were needing to operate under. So I wanted to, so we called my pal Judy Bunkelman at licensing, and she is going to join us on Wednesday. She is a wonderful person and is the Child Care Licensing Administrator, or I can't quite remember her title, but Judy is going to join us because she knows all about what decisions licensing is making, what flexibility they are allowing, what you should be thinking about as you open your programs again, whether it is for summer Head Start or for the fall. And we will have an opportunity both to get updates and to ask her questions. And that question piece, I will say, so based on the comments from 2 weeks ago, we set something up last week on unemployment, and we got the guy from the Unemployment Law Project to come. And the questions that you guys had were so good. And the information, therefore, was so particular to what we are experiencing and what our families are experiencing. He gave a ton of great information. This reminds me that I was going to send out, you will all get another an email from me that has some information from him about appealing your unemployment case. A lot of people are getting their unemployment denied because of the way that they answer some very confusingly written questions and other reasons. And so the appeal process is a very critical part of this now, and so he has some thoughts about that. And we recorded that, and so I recommend that you guys watch that. If you didn't, or share it with your family support worker. If you're a parent, share it with your fellow parents, because the information was really, really good. There's a question about whether or not the licensing one on Wednesday will be recorded, and yes, it will. We try to be as public as possible, as transparent as we can be. That is one of our goals here. The other thing I wanted to mention was that this last week, DCYF announced that they would have sort of an emergency fund that licensed providers can apply to for COVID. And so I wanted to make sure that you guys know about that. I think you probably did. They probably sent it out to all the licensed providers. This might be of certainly particular interest to those of you who are child care and not school districts, but but also to your subcontractors, because I know that people are really struggling financially. And this is, I want to say that there's there'll be a, you apply and then you can get $6,500 for small providers, $11,500 for medium providers, and $14,000 for large providers. And you can spend this money on facilities, space or rent, personnel, utilities, health and safety, cleaning supplies, food, all of that. And so in the DCYF licensed provider portal, the online application will be available in the next week. And so I want to really thank DCYF for stepping up and using some of that CARES money for that purpose. Let me see if there are other things I was thinking about. So the other thing I would like to report on is, so there's a couple of pots of money. Is Joel on the call here?
Yep, I'm right here.
Joel, do you want to report a little bit about the CARES and the gears and all of that stuff going on at the governor's office?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it last week. What I think you need to know is that there are two major pots of CARES dollars that are opportunities for early learning. One of them is childcare money. So the state received, I don't know what it was, something like $58 million of federal childcare money. I think you know that the state also received some money for Head Start, not the state, but Head Start programs. But in addition to that, there are dollars that the state received to support educational outcomes. Most of that money is specific to K-12 and higher ed, but the governor has some flexibility on how to spend those dollars. And so one of the things we've been advocating for with the governor's office is to try to use some of those dollars for ECAP. And I know we talked about this last week, about what those dollars would be used for. So we propose very specifically that they be used for a temporary rate increase of 5% for ECAP contractors based on some feedback from last week's call. We're still looking at a potential summer programming option. We're looking at different things. The governor's office has become more interested in family support, probably because that's something you guys are often talking to us about, and what we're hearing a lot about how do we continue the family support work during the summer so those families aren't missing those opportunities. We're also looked at early
We
ECAP.
lost you. Could you repeat that last 10 seconds?
Yeah, I was just mentioning that we're looking at some summer programming, and we're also looking at potential early ECAP. One thing that I'm interested in hearing from you guys, though, is the governor's office, as well as the folks at the National Head Start Association, are wondering what are the needs now? So what are the needs of both Head Start and ECAP programs right now? So at the federal level, the national group is trying to negotiate additional dollars in the next stimulus package or relief package. And then here at the state level, the governor's office and lawmakers are also trying to figure out what are the most urgent needs of ECAP programs. So I'd be curious if we can spend some time on this call just highlighting some of those and what funding would be, or if you could get some extra dollars.
What do people think? I mean, apart from cash money.
Yeah, that always helps. By the way, the only thing I'll say as you guys are thinking about this is that the governor's office has about 2 weeks that they'll let us know whether or not ECAP is in this potential funding opportunity or not. So there's a number of pieces to this. There are proposals that the K-12 community will just simply take all the money. The higher ed community will take all the money. Early learning might get a small piece of it, and then even within early learning, how much goes to childcare, how much goes to ECAP, if at all. So there's a lot of things in flux. The way that it works, though, is the governor would need to apply to the Department of Education and say, okay, here's how we want to spend the money. But we're about 2 weeks away from having a decision on that I'll be able to report back. I do have a call. Katie and I are talking to the governor's office, I believe, on Thursday. What is the time period? Only until June 30th? No, the CARES dollars actually run through September 2022. I was surprised at that. So they are not, it's not something that is immediate dollars, which actually when I looked it up, so that allows us to ask, just because we would, for a 2-year rate increase for ECAP as opposed to just one, which is what we proposed, which is 2 years. Naturally, if you propose 2, you're more likely to get 1 if you know how it works. But the dollars actually are longer usage than probably a lot of us would assume, right? But actually, when I looked at the statute, it goes through 2022.
So we
Joel, is September 22 or September 2022?
2022.
September 2022, yeah.
Yeah. So we have a couple of answers to your question. ECAP summer programs and summer family services. Contractor, bump would probably be my vote. Yeah. We know you guys. We know you guys. We know what you need. Let's see here. The slot increase would be great. The trauma-informed and grief information, training, and education are very pertinent right now. How to prepare staff to support all of experiencing these challenges. The rate increase, the rate increase, the rate increase. One of the biggest issues is family being over income, even with working on minimum wage and not even full time. Some people that are essential workers may be getting bonuses that can make that worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of rating.
Katie, did the directors ever get information from Colleen about the unemployment benefits and stimulus checks? I know the Office of Head Start was going to send it out.
Oh, about the bonus not counting towards, yeah, I think probably, yes. I don't know whether I've received anything from the Office of Head Start, so they might not have either, but I think that this was an issue before those stimulus unemployment came, and will be an issue after because of our minimum wage, right? This person is talking specifically about how if you're an essential worker, you are working more hours or you're getting bonuses on your pay, so you may not qualify anymore. Let's see here. There's a question. Any sense for when we will know whether ECAP will be part of budget cuts? So this is an interesting question, since we don't know. We're all, and this is part of one of the things that Joel is working on this week, which is a request to all of you to talk to all of your local legislators about what you're doing and the importance of ECAP, and for Head Start as well, but especially for ECAP, since we're going to see like a really unpleasant special session. So we're going to need them to really know what you guys are up to and how ECAP and Head Start fit into this whole COVID recovery landscape and how important it is, especially considering all of these children who are experiencing trauma and parents who have lost their jobs and all of that, to really understand that it is, that we are part of both the larger early learning and childcare system, and then we are also part of this intervention and trauma recovery system, right? We are at the crossroads of those two important things as we recover from COVID. So we want you to be delivering that message to your local legislators, because we want them to go into the session not wanting to cut ECAP, or not wanting to pit us against childcare, which is quite possible. I think that the governor's office is very supportive of ECAP, and I would be surprised if they would advocate for any cuts in the budget that they will propose. But at this point, we don't know. Anything to add to that, Joel?
I just think that we should be prepared for the worst. I mean, this is going to be really difficult. If you asked me about a month ago, I probably would have said, okay, they'll come into a special session and there might be some opportunities for us to even push more on, a little bit more money for a special needs fund or some other things. It's cataclysmic budget situation. It's not inconceivable that ECAP or childcare could get cut in the special session. I think what we have going for us is we have a lot of allies. And in addition to that, it's before an election. So it seems unlikely that lawmakers who probably are feeling, that they've accomplished some things would want to, right before they start campaigning for election, cut everything. So that seems unlikely. It also means it's unlikely that they would try to raise progressive revenue so that they would tax some of the wealthy people. So I don't think we know, but if I was betting on this, I would bet that sometime late summer, they'll try to come in but they'll already have a budget done. There won't be a lot of opportunity for us to, weigh in. I think it'll already be cooked up before we ever do anything. And they'll probably make some smaller trims to things and kind of see how it goes. That's what I think might happen, but I don't know. It depends. I think it also depends on the reopening. Yesterday I drove to Edmonds with my family, and I'm really safe. So I haven't been doing takeout and other stuff, but the place is packed. I don't know if you guys are experiencing that too, but takeout restaurants are packed. People are on the beach. It seems like a lot of it will depend on what the economy looks like, several months from now, right? So I don't think they know. The Democrats, especially the more progressive Democrats, don't want to come in too early and presume there'll be cuts. I think they're hoping that that things will turn around enough that those cuts won't be as deep or as critical. So I don't think we know. I mean, and at the federal level, the Republicans' perspective is wait and see. They're putting all their marbles on the economy will recover and open up. And the Democrats are pushing for a lot of money for childcare. There's a proposal even up to $100 billion at the federal level, and probably some more money for Head Start. Not to that scale. So there's kind of a logjam at the federal level too. It's starting to break down much more in partisan tones than it was, say, a few weeks ago even. But at the state level, just presume that there'll be cuts one way or the other. The question is when will they come in and do it? And I think our job between now and then is to have us reach out to all the lawmakers and say, you might not be aware that ECAP is open. ECAP is doing this while we're open. We're providing family support. We're providing virtual education services. We're doing this, this, and this. We're providing childcare for essential workers. And so we'll have a meeting. There's a small group of us meeting on Wednesday to kind of work through some of the messaging, and then we'll send something out to all the programs saying, okay, Sandy, I'm looking just because I have you on my screen. I like your picture too. Okay, Sandy, reach out to your Olympia lawmakers ask them to read a story, ask them to connect with you, so you can share for a few minutes, what's the work of the ESD in the area, or same with Danielle, or all, and hopefully what we've done is you won't have a specific ask. I don't think that you're going to say, well, okay, and as a result of that, give me more money or don't. But I think what we're hoping is that when lawmakers eventually do come back in, they'll think, I can't cut ECAP. Sandy told me all these nice things about ECAP. They seem like this is a pretty urgent service. So I'm gonna spare ECAP, or I'm less likely to, push for ECAP cuts. So I think that's our goal, is to sort of inoculate us against what may be a difficult budget situation. And I don't know. We'll look at a variety. We're looking at strategies also based on earned media. So maybe like in a key district, we have you tell your story to your local media outlets, or we give you a little template news release that you can send out to your local reporters, your education reporters. So we're going to do some of that. And then of course there'll be a phone to action, just because we like phone to action. I see the cat is involved again with Katie.
Yeah.
The cat can work with us on phone to action. So we'll have a more, as we get closer, we'll blitz them with a lot of emails. But for now, it's really making sure they're connected to you, making sure those lawmakers are directly connected to your program, and they just, hear what you're doing. Because once they hear what you're doing, they're going to be amazed. And it'll be really hard to cut.
Okay, so Jackie Haight asks, I think this is she's asking about pandemic EBT, food through USDA. Jackie, can you unmute yourself and elaborate a little bit about what you're talking about there?
Oh, well, I just been looking at, because the school program's going to end on June 18th in our district, and we're just looking at trying to get ahead of the game, and why our state didn't choose to be part of the pandemic EBT, because the state has to choose to do those USDA programs. And I wondered if anyone had any knowledge of why they're not choosing to support families that are on free or reduced lunch at schools, which I hope would include Head Starts and ECAP.
So I do know a little bit about that, because we reached out to them about that a couple of weeks ago and asked why, because basically they have to apply for the program essentially. And what I was told was that they had been working for a month to try to figure out how to make it happen without having to have people apply, because they were looking at many, many thousands of applications then coming in at the same time. But I have not followed up with them after that. They said they were still working on it. And so let me reach out to Babs and see where they are on that, because I agree with you that is really critical. And it's also, if I recall correctly, it's also something that's available to kids from undocumented families as well. So it's not as restrictive as the other food stamps programs. Is that right?
Yeah, Katie, this is Fatima.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Fatima.
Well, we were in the same conference call, but one of the things, if we not apply for preschool children, so no ECAP, no Head Start, but if the family has older kids, they can take advantage of that.
Right. Yeah.
And it's across, because it's like the food program at the school. It's like
right.
Eating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this won't affect, this applies also for undocumented families. So, and it won't be anything against them. So it's like when they receive free and reduced lunch at the school. Give me 1 minute to translate to Spanish.
Okay.
Entonces,
Okay. More comments. Ethna says facilities may need to spend extra money on sanitation equipment, time efficient, and clear face shields, PPE. Yeah, I absolutely think that. And that new that new fund from DCYF may be really helpful to a lot of your facilities, Ethna. You know, the other thing that came up, April, who I see on my screen with her little granddaughter here, brand new granddaughter.
Maybe it's me, Marisela. I don't know if April is.
What?
I'm using April's account, so maybe it was me, not April.
Oh, that's probably it. Yeah, you're right. So April actually, sat in for me this week on our Birth to 3 calls and talked about the staff calls and talked about, and the folks talked about restarting home visiting and how their programs were talking about having to be masked for all of their meetings and having to change clothes between visits and all that kind of thing. There's a lot of things that are going to be slower and cost more as we move into the fall and restart our programs. So yeah, I think that's absolutely right, Ethna. Another comment, having trauma-informed information for parents as teachers. Oh, Tammy says they did get the word from the Office of Head Start that the bonuses for unemployment don't count as just thinking about how the class sizes are going to be come fall is a major impact. Yeah, absolutely. That's on our list as well. We're trying to figure that out. And some of these things we're just trying to wait it out a little bit so that we don't spin our wheels too much before we know what the decisions are going to be coming down. We try to influence them, but it's a hard one. Fatima, if you can double check and make sure that, because the summer lunch programs are 0 to 18, if you could double check on that. In regards to summer meals.
Katie,
yeah.
Is that question related to EBT? The EBT pandemic card?
Oh, so.
When you were talking about the summer program meals?
Right, yeah.
I think that those are different.
Yeah.
Right.
So the EBT would go to the family and the summer lunch is a pickup, right? In most places?
Yes.
Yeah. So the summer lunch pickup that they do every summer, that is for 0 to 18, but this EBT would not then. Is that what I'm hearing? Right. Yeah,
and it's my understanding that EBT won't be reduced during the summer, so they will include it during the summer, right, Fatima? So they won't cut it.
Right. Okay, in regards to summer meals, it would be great if there was more flexibility so we could continue to provide meals for the whole week on Mondays. In doing this, we have a lot of staff who are able to have their eyes on our children and families, which is essential for our safety and family mental wellness. Yeah, I think that's true. I understood the new DCYF fund relates to the center being open by the grant date. Do you know what date that is? And the answer is no, I have no idea. I do not know the details. All I have seen is the invitation to the webinar and the very basic data, but I'm sure that they'll flesh that out this week. Does the bonus from unemployment still affect ECAP? Is Nicole on the call? This is something that we raised with the ECAP folks and they seemed open to not counting that, but I have not heard back from them. I will follow up with them. Also, funds could go to packets to families unable to attend centers until ratios increase. So far, our center has been using the parent committee funds, which comes from ECAP, but funds are emptying. I know it's supposed to refill in June. It would just be helpful that the fund were there to use it solely for that purpose. Yeah, and Belinda, that actually speaks to one of the questions about what it looks like when we have the ratios in the fall, whether or not we will have some kiddos still doing remote learning and some in the center or some hybrid. We will see. Will one of the migrant seasonal Head Start programs be available to share their experiences related to sanitation and PPE? And the answer is yes. I was waiting to do that. So the migrant seasonal folks and Children's Home Society, who's already opened up, have offered to do that information sharing. I was just waiting for them to actually get up and running because I figured that they would have more lessons learned after they were really, after they'd been in it for a week or two. And I think that they were opening up this week, or it might have been last week. So I will double check with them and we will schedule that probably in 2 weeks. I'll talk to them about what their capacity is. Nicole Lohr, we can't hear her talking. We are currently reviewing questions from folks around eligibility and counting income and putting together a proposal. We'll update as soon as we know more. We're definitely going to try and be as flexible as we can. I would just say, Nicole, if they're getting unemployment, they're unemployed. So they really, really should be eligible, even if their benefit is higher.
This is, Katie, I was just going to mention, I've raised this on some of the national calls around Head Start eligibility and whether or not essential workers should be eligible for Head Start. And I've kind of gotten a mixed reaction to that, I would say. So I'd be curious to get some feedback on that. Essentially, you know, because I'm worried about Head Start has a lot tighter eligibility requirements now than ECAP. ECAP, we've been able to open up some more flexible options for people, but Head Start is not as flexible, I would say. So I am, especially the person who said, you know, the grocery store worker is working more, and suddenly their income is going to be higher, or other people in the medical profession. So, but I would say it's been pretty mixed. I've raised this issue about whether or not we should change Head Start's eligibility to include essential workers during these times moving forward. But anyway, curious what people would say to that.
What do people think?
I think that if someone is eligible to have their children in these programs, regardless of what position they're in, they should be given that opportunity.
Right. So it should still be income-based, Belinda. Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, I still feel it should be income-based.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're still providing it. They're still, you know, making money as an essential worker, unless they, you know, I just don't feel that there should be any other way around it. I feel like it should be based on income. That way it sets the playing field for everyone, that there's no bias in any other sort.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously within the times that we're in, with the ratios being low as they are, obviously I feel that essential workers should come first before anything else. But aside from that, regarding whether or not we accept someone over another, should be based solely on income.
Thanks, Belinda.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so some comments in here. Margaret Santalucia says, keep in mind that the income they're receiving now shouldn't be used. Eligibility is based on 2019 unless they've lost that job from 2019. Kay Libitsky says, funds to assist with recruitment effort. Consider a more consolidated state or county effort. And Kay, there's movement on that through what do they call it? So there's some movement on figuring out how you do consolidated recruitment, and the folks over in the Tri-Cities have a model where they've done that, and then there's also some conversations about making online systems more flexible to do online applications. I know there's some frustration with the ECAP application not going into the system. You have to retype everything, but so figuring out how that works. Stacy says, hopefully we can also have flexibility in the work-school requirement for working day. COVID-related unemployment should be a special consideration. Otherwise, many of our families will no longer be eligible because of the pandemic.
Yeah, that's a good point, Stacy. I think, I've always wondered, I mean, the additional hours, I think, have sort of always been meant about people going to school or work. But I've also thought, shouldn't those extra hours be needed for priority populations that I'm sure are really suffering during this time and may suffer moving forward? I wonder what level of flexibility DCYF can build into that to support, because I think in some cases, more hours would be beneficial for those families, even if they're not working, for them to have more time with you guys.
And the other issue is, like, we have families that are currently enrolled that we are required to re-verify their eligibility for the working day slots in the spring or early summer. And when we do that, some families fall off of that. We have to try to find a different type of slot for them, a school day or a part day, for example. And I'm worried about asking all of our families and re-verifying eligibility when the bulk of our slots are working day in childcare settings. And we're only able to support or to provide in-class services for small groups of kids, but we're still doing teleservices that really are a lifeline for a lot of families. So if they fall off of that eligibility, that would be very devastating for them.
Are you having to, Stacey, are you having to check that through? Is this an ECAP specific funding stream, or is this Working Connections childcare, or both?
This is all ECAP. These are the working day ECAP slots. So every late spring, early summer, we have a simple screening we do with families just to ensure they still meet those work hour and I'll turn on my video, work hour and school hours. I think it was established because those slots were funded with Working Connections dollars, and those were Working Connections requirements. Now that that's not where the funding comes from, I wonder then if that's where that flexibility can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Nicole, what do you think about that? I wonder if we can hear you now. If you want to try to. Thanks, Stacy. That's an important point you're making. All right, I see Nicole Laura. We are also working on working day eligibility flexibility within the same proposal. Thanks for the feedback. Yeah. So I guess they're looking at that, Stacy, internally at DCYF.
All right, Sally says, I would like to see eligibility increase to a higher percentage of the federal poverty level. The federal poverty level isn't adequate for the need. Agreed. Mm-hmm. Nancy Trevina agrees with Belinda. That was related to whether or not we make eligible people who are emergency workers.
Katie?
Yes.
I reached out to my center to get feedback regarding the question that Joel had asked earlier. Can I just tell what they said?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so the center said that our primary need is more funds for staff. Long-term subs would enable us to serve more students. We need funds to support kids with special needs and behavioral challenges. Many of our families are struggling right now. An emergency fund that would access would be helpful.
Great. Where are you from, Belinda?
TCC, Tacoma Community College, the Early Child Learning Center is the one that I'm referring to.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Belinda is one of our parent ambassadors this year, but I forgot where she's from because I'm terrible.
Belinda, good job though in reaching out. That was well done.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Jill.
So unemployment, Katie Steiner says unemployment income should not be called income. Some agreement. Sandy Nelson asks, Joel, what are you hearing about the June 30th deadline for Head Start? Will that be extended?
You'll have to tell me more of the June 30th deadline, so I haven't heard about this issue. I know Sandy wants to unmute her line.
Yeah, unmute yourself, Sandy. Unity asks if essential workers could get more priority points. Rika says, I do think essential workers who are now working should continue to be eligible. There's no guarantee that their current income is sustainable, and I would hate for them to lose their spot. If they were qualified before, they should maintain their eligibility. That's a good point, that we may have essential workers who now are making too much money because they have to work extra hours.
Although Fred Meyer, as you know, and QFC are trying to get rid of their $2 an hour hazard pay, which is really terrible. I mean, it's a shameful that they would even consider that. But anyway.
Income will pose a problem if they're considered for eligibility. A lot of people have that issue. Let's see here. So I would share that so for those who want a higher federal poverty level, that is written into the RCW. So we need a law change. It's why every year or two, we're asking DCYF, and we're not DCYF, but we're asking the legislature to increase the eligibility level for ECAP. That's why we went to have the 130 conversation and the 200 and all of that. That's why, because it's in RCW. Sally thinks Sandy is talking about the ability to pay staff while they're at home. So yeah, it's paying your staff through that date.
What have they, Erica or Sally, do you guys want to just unmute? What's the Office of Head Start said around this? Have you been on any of the calls, or if not, I can send something upstairs to check with them, but I haven't heard much about this.
I haven't heard anything recently on the calls. Dr. Bergeron, I think she did her monthly vlog, I think was her most recent thing. So I haven't heard about extending it. At the time, they definitely said they'd be, tracking and open to it. I mean, at the same time, they're trying to put out summer program applications due May 15th that are for July and August. So I don't know how the CARES money coming in for summer would intersect with paying people closed. I don't know if that plays into it at all, but I haven't heard any updates since that came out in April.
Okay. So what does that look like if you are a program who's not doing summer services? What does that look like for you on July 1st? You lay all your staff off? Is that what happens?
I think it depends program to program as to, yeah, I don't know. I mean, because right now they did put out additional guidance for the June 30th one that if you typically lay off staff prior to June 30th, it doesn't apply to this. You can still go with your typical layoffs for seasonal staff. We have mostly converted where most of our staff we don't have seasonal layoffs in Head Start, early Head Start.
So this really would impact you if they don't give clearance about what they're going to do after June 30th.
Right. So it would be, can you use your existing funds to keep paying staff for doing remote services as opposed to? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And you're still operating all of your home visiting programs and all of that remotely.
Remotely, but not full 90-minute visits by any stretch of the imagination.
Yes. I've heard that from a lot of home visitors that, you're pushing it if you do 45. It's overwhelming to do more.
Yeah. And you know, I imagine we run a large home-based. I imagine home-based would be the last part of our program to reopen once we start reopening stuff. The risk of people going from house to house seems high to me personally. Of course, I'm in King County, so I think it's highly impacted. So
stand away from the balcony or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you can issue them all like those yelling devices that the
megaphone.
Yeah, megaphone.
All right, Erica and friends, I'll ask the Office of Head Start about the June 30th deadline issue.
That would help, because for us, we have about 2/3 of our programming will go on unemployment. We've got quite a few part-day, and our duration doesn't last all year. But our summer programming is for our childcare. And so reopening that, and we want to wait until we're ready, and we need to have policies, and we need to have medical equipment. I mean, we need to have thermometers and gloves and sanitizing, foam and all that kind of stuff that we need to have before we can consider reopening. And so there's a lot to go into that decision. And so there might be a little bit of gap.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Other thoughts from folks about what's going on out there and what you might want us to be doing and what we should be aware of? We've got it all nailed.
Yeah, that's good. Katie, don't you have a great summer institute coming up?
Yes, yeah, we do. I mentioned it in the email, and it's we've got a whole bunch of classes lined up, but I just need to get all the contracts in place and get it up. But we're doing 10-hour classes over 5 consecutive days. So you'll only do a maximum of 2 hours a day. We've got, gosh, at this point, I think we've got, I don't know, somewhere between 8 and 12 different classes that you could sign up, and they'll be starting the week of the 8th. So, you would be doing a class like those 5 days from 8 to 10, and there'll be somebody else's class that is operating from 11:30 to 1:30 or whatever. So we have a whole bunch of really interesting classes. We have most of our folks have experience doing online training, although that experience may be super recent. We have some of our folks from the infant toddler or from the birth to 3 conference doing it. That has been a huge, really great success. And so people have been really pleased with it. And so we think we can do it. We think we know how to do this now. So, yeah, we're gonna get this thing started. And I know that some of you closed down in mid-June, and so you may not have access to all of those classes, but hopefully some of you will. And we're going to try to get something up this next week so you can register and get your teachers and family support, home visitors. And then for those of you who are doing early ECAP, we're working with the folks at DCYF to figure out what a class that might be particularly pointed at early ECAP might be, and that would be open to early Head Start as well, obviously. So, yeah.
The other thing I wanted to add, Katie, is I got a lot of feedback from you guys about the director's retreat. And I think we made the determination that we'll do the director's retreat virtually. Not super ideal, but I think what I'm going to do at this point is start looking for topics and potential speakers. One of the advantages we have in doing this is, of course, we can bring in a lot more speakers from all across the country to add a different flavor to some of our conversations and meetings. So I'll be looking for feedback. And Karen, I don't know if you're on this, I just got an email from you, but it looked like the combination of the ESDs having some travel restrictions and other people with underlying health issues or a spouse, or so that we ended up deciding to do, as much as I would have loved to eat all those cookies that they have at the director's retreat. We're gonna do it virtually to make sure that we're keeping people safe, and so it'll be a little different. We'll have to figure out together how the conversations go and how the meeting is structured, but it does afford us the opportunity to be able to bring some people in from national groups, and maybe we have Debbie Bergeron or something, or we can think through how to make it really meaningful for you guys. I just wanted to let you know that.
Yeah, I will say that it may not be the exact same 3 days that we had planned to do it before. It may be a little bit later in July. Those 3 days were already a little bit problematic for us because they came so shortly on the heels of Summer Institute, and I was going to be gone. And I'm sure that you do not want Joel managing an online institute, do you?
We would
no, you do
fine.
not.
Eric and I would do
Let's
this.
just all think through what that looks like.
No, we would be fine. Do it from the car.
So it'll probably be later in July, and you will not have to be on Zoom like for the 7 hours of time that you normally would during the day. We'll try to figure out something that's a little bit more online friendly in terms of structure. So yeah, we're starting our planning on that. So if you have any suggestions, send them our way. Couple of final comments over here. Sally wonders why USDA would not consider the EBT for preschool. This I don't know. So I will ask around, but I'm not sure, but it's probably that they just tied it to free and reduced, and so they probably didn't give a second thought to preschool because they never do. That may be. And then Marcy Scott reports that they've been using the bus and taking packets to the families, and it's been great to see them. And it asks about the price for the Institute. Haven't quite decided, but I think that for a 10-hour course, it's probably going to be a couple $100. But I haven't done all of the math yet. So we will, you will know soon. I will do math this week, and hopefully next week we'll have something up. So yeah, I think that's it. And Sally, I just really don't know. I just don't know the answer to this question.
Sally, I'll start looking into the.
Yeah, we'll ask around and report back. But yeah, so thank you, everybody. Really appreciate you all coming, and for all the work that you guys are up to out there. Thanks, guys.
You too, Katie and Joel.
Thanks, Katie and Joel. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody, take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.